how is your lawsuit against the state going? Rooting for you. We have oral arguments in front of the 10th Circuit on the 17th of March, which just happens to be Caucus Day. We are going to be arguing the case in front of a 3-judge panel in the 10th Circuit Court. We had asked for an emergency injunction that would have forced the legislature to give me a press pass for this session. 2 of the judges said no, basically saying that we were trying to change the circumstances of the case. I didn't get one for this session, but one of the judges already said that he would have issue the injunction. And my lawyers say that's a really good sign, because that means that this judge is going to be with us when we argue the merits. And the thing about this 10th Circuit, this appeal in front of the 10th Circuit, this will be the very first time that we've had a chance to argue the merits of this case. When Judge Shelby here in Utah dismissed the case, we did have an in-person hearing, and he refused to engage on the merits of the case. He was very locked in on some procedural moves, and then he ended up dismissing the case when we appealed. Now we're going to have our day in court in front of these judges and get to argue the merits of the case. The ACLU of Utah has written an amicus brief on my behalf, and then the Reporters Committee for the First Amendment and FIRE, which is a free speech organization, they also submitted an amicus brief on my behalf. And so we're hopeful that on March 17th, when we get a chance to argue this in front of the court, in front of these judges in Denver, that they will reverse it, send it back down to the court here in Utah for further proceedings. My lawyers seem to feel very confident about how that's going to turn out. So fingers crossed. When I left the Salt Lake Tribune in 2024 and started Utah Political Watch, they changed the rules for getting a press pass. In the past, independent journalists and quote-unquote bloggers were issued press passes, and then they changed the rules and said independent journalists, freelancers, bloggers were no longer allowed to, were no longer eligible to get a press pass. I applied, they denied me, and I'm the only person, I am the only reporter in Utah who they have denied a press pass to. I applied again this year, and they denied. Again, I am the only person who has been denied a press pass. After we filed suit, they made up some new rules about who could have a press pass. One of the reasons why I didn't get a press pass in the ex post facto reasoning they came up with was that I didn't have an editor, that there was nobody who could fire me in the organization. And if you think about it for a second, why do they want an editor or someone in the organization who can fire a reporter? It's so they can call up an editor and jawbone them if there is coverage that they don't like. That's the only reason why they would want to have an editor. And it should really alarm you that your government is deciding who is and is not a quote unquote legitimate journalist based on the fact on whether that person has a supervisor who can fire them, and it's someone that they can call and jawbone and pressure if a story is reported in a way that they don't like. They can't do that to me. They want to call and complain about a story. They have my number. They can call me anytime, and we can have that discussion. But there's not someone that they can't speak to my manager, and they really want to have a manager that they can speak to. Essentially, they are the Karens of the media world, of the journalistic world. And that is not a proper role of the government. The government should not be deciding who is and who is not a legitimate journalist based on whether or not they are employed by a legacy journalism outlet. That's not the way that this works. That's not the way the First Amendment works. When the First Amendment was ratified back with the founders, they had no clue that this is what the media was going to look like. They were thinking about people who self-published pamphlets and distributed them. That's what they thought this was about. And now you've got a state government deciding which reporters get to ask them questions at press conferences based on whether or not they have someone who can fire them or discipline them. It's not a space issue. I wasn't denied a press pass, and they admit this. They readily admit this. I was not denied a pass because they have issues with space or issues with security. It was solely on the fact that I am a quote-unquote blogger. And when we asked them under oath to define blogger, they couldn't. They don't have a definition of it. They were pulling stuff out of their butt is what it was. I get a little hot about this because I do not think that the government should. They're not a private organization. They act like a private organization. Oh yeah, and they're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars of your tax dollars to defend the lawsuit. They're not using the attorney general. They're using a high-priced boutique law firm out of Washington, D.C. called Consovoy McCarthy. That's who their lawyers were in the gerrymandering case, the very same lawyers who missed 2 filing deadlines for issuing an appeal. But they are making bank. If you go and look at how much money they have paid this law firm over the years, and they've represented them in 3 cases. The abortion trigger law case, that's who that is representing them, not the state, not the attorney general. The gerrymandering case, not the attorney general, it's Consovoy McCarthy. And in my lawsuit, they have been paid hundreds of thousands of dollars over the past few years of your tax money to defend against this thing. They're obviously scared of me. They do not want me up there